In my 40-plus year career as a writer and as a journalist, I have often been at the forefront of the story, as an author, as a newspaper and radio commentator, and as a reporter. What I came to realize in this final 64-more interview with Kathryn Gallant is that my true place in the world of storytelling is within a space that I seem to be able to create while interviewing that allows people to feel comfortable and where they are willing to share moments and memories of the kind that ultimately connect us all.
It seems to me that in so many instances, people don't get anywhere near what they really want simply because they're unwilling to ask, or they don't even know that they can ask. But there's this quality that you bring. You just ask. I mean, you seem to have this sort of quality of, what's the worst thing that can happen?
I think it's Irish. I think it's a lot of it's the Irish. Liz Allen said it several times that Joe Biden lives by this thing. His mother taught him that you're no better than anybody else and nobody else is better than you. We kind of said that in our family of everybody puts their pants on the same way. And I would suggest that people don't get close to doing the things that they might like to do a lot of times because they don't know what that is. How do you know what you really want to do? Did anyone ever sit down and really counsel you when you a guidance counselor? Mm-hmm. Did they ever really say, what do you want to do? Or did they say, you need to get this job because, that was my dad. I wanted to major in government when I was going to college. And my dad, to his credit, kid of the Depression, right? His parents, and always ground into him what the Depression was like, and you need to get a job and work hard and make your money. His thing was you need to be a teacher. You get your summers off and you'll get a pension. My first year in college, I did go for elementary education to teach the tiny tots because I love kids, but then got married and had children. So I taught my kids, and I've always been a Brownie leader. I mean, in those respects, but never in a classroom. Except I'm asked a lot now to teach, to go in and speak about writing and things like that, and I thoroughly enjoy that. But it's within the context of the thing that fulfills me most, which is writing and telling the story.
What was the most joyous moment?
Reva, the caker. She made me laugh because she's just joy. She is joy in a baking suit. She just wants to make people happy, and she does it through cake and her sense of humor.
What was the most heartbreaking moment?
I interviewed my first interview was Stella Usiak. And she was very precise. I had to call her 12 and a half. She wasn't 12. And at first I kind of kidded her about that, but then I realized the reason for that was that she had had cancer for more than half of her life. But she doesn't feel sorry for herself, and she makes her own life dreams come true, and she never looks for people to cry for her or about her. But every moment of that interview was poignant, every single moment of it. And there was a whole part of the interview that I had to cut out because of time. And it was when she sat down with her mother. And her mother is the caregiver extraordinaire. And the relationship they've developed and what they learn from each other on a daily basis. That was all. That was a lot.
How have you changed?
My friends will tell you I've always interviewed them. If someone says something that intrigues me, I'm automatically off to the races. I'm not trying to be rude and I'm not trying to be invasive. It's just I have a natural interest. It's not even a curiosity, it's an interest. Well, that's interesting. Tell me, how does that happen? And now I do it all the time to people I've never even met before. Everybody has a story. And I feel like I'm constantly, there's not enough hours in the day. Every post I see on Facebook, everything that happens, I want to go and tell the story. And I now know that I can. This is what God made me to do, is to tell the stories. And I know that, but because at the end of every interview, without fail, no matter if it's been Herb Kohler or whether it's been little Stella, it's the same reaction. Thank you. I've never had an interview like this. I tell you things I've never told anyone. And that's an honor. Mm-hmm. This last year has cost me. You
funded this almost entirely yourself.
That was probably the hardest part, was having the faith that I could get through a year and still have a roof over my head and pay my bills. But I'm coming out of it now with a fear factor of, okay, where's the work? Because it's not why I did it, but you have to be realistic.
Absolutely.
So there are some opportunities that look like they may come my way, and I'm hopeful. But at the end of the day, even if they don't, if I have to go flip burgers somewhere, I'll do it still doing this work on the side. Because there are parts of it, the editing is still challenging, but I'm getting better at it, and I'm getting where I'm happier with it, and the stories are being more properly told.
And I think about the enormous humanity of honoring stories and honoring narrative and honoring the creation of a space for people to tell those stories. And I think about the huge gift that you've given, not just to the people you interviewed, which is obviously, I can just imagine it being almost beyond measure, but to yourself, obviously, this, and I mean this in the most complimentary way, this way that you've built a sort of acknowledgement loop for yourself, that what your heart wants to do and what your talent and your passion and your hands have brought you to, that there's a space for it in the world. You don't know exactly where yet. You don't know how, but you know that this is part of who you are. This is the narrative. Getting people to tell their narratives is part of your narrative.
Exactly. The validation, I would call it validation more because, like I said, mom at 18, my kids hate when I say this, but no college degree, which doesn't matter, except it did to me because, again, I came from parents who didn't have college, and that was their driving force. You've got to get an education or you'll never make it. So that was kind of drummed into my head. So to think about all those things, and once my kids went off to school, college, on their own, high school and college, it was like, well, what are you going to do with yourself, and what is it you want to do? I have no idea what I want to do, and I did a lot of jobs. I mean, I could give you a resume that just, managed a restaurant and taught aerobics and all these crazy things, and there were elements of each one that were like, this is, but there was always that edge of still, almost an angst of not getting to where I need to be. And I know it influenced me as a human being. I know it influenced me in my life and my relationships with people because I was never satisfied. I was always digging for something and not understanding what it was. Digging for something like, a new car or a retail therapy or, a bigger house or all those things that we tend to look at when we really don't know what real happiness or fulfillment is. I found it. And there's so many parts about this project, like why did you start this project? I don't know, it sounded like fun. It's what I'm meant to do, what I believe I'm meant to do. I can't say if anyone else has enjoyed them. I get emails from people who say they do. The subjects have certainly enjoyed them, their families have enjoyed them. But for me, this is so fulfilling. And it's not even what I thought I wanted to do. Like, I've always been in front of the camera. I've always been the one where you could see me, where you could hear my voice. None of that is happening here. So it's clearly not ego-centered as far as, oh, look at me, I'm on TV or in a video or whatever. It's more, I can relate to people in a way that allows them just to be. Just to be. And when they be, they can tell their story.